The morning light filtered through my apartment window as I stared at the phone screen, my mother's name flashing for the third time in 5 minutes. I knew I shouldn't answer. Every instinct screamed at me to let it ring, but 32 years of conditioning is hard to break. My thumb hovered over the green button as memories flooded back, memories of a childhood spent watching from the sidelines, while my twin sister Mila basked in the spotlight of our parents' adoration. We were born 3 minutes apart, but those 3 minutes might as well have been 3 years for how differently we were treated. Mila came first, and from that moment on, she was always first in everything that mattered to our parents. While I learned to tie my shoes at 4, they celebrated Mila managing it at 6. When I brought home straight A's, they'd pat my head absently while planning Mila's C-average celebration dinner. I scored a full scholarship to university. They threw a party because Mila got accepted to community college. The phone stopped ringing, then immediately started again. This time, it was my father. Something was wrong. They never tag-teamed their calls like this. Against my better judgment, I answered. Finally, where have you been? My father's voice was strained, almost panicked. We've been trying to reach you for hours. It's 7 in the morning, Dad. I was sleeping. I kept my voice neutral, professional, the same tone I used with difficult clients at the law firm. Your mother and we've been in an accident. A bad one. We're at St. Mary's Hospital. The words hung in the air like smoke. For a moment, I felt that old familiar pull, the dutiful daughter instinct that had driven me for decades. But then I remembered the wedding fund, and the pull turned to lead in my stomach. How bad is it? I managed to ask. We need surgery. Both of us. Multiple surgeries. The other driver ran a red light, hit us head on, the doctors say. His voice cracked. They say if we don't get the operations soon, your mother might not walk again, and my internal injuries. I sank onto my couch, the morning coffee I'd been about to make forgotten. I'm sorry to hear that, Dad. Have you called Mila? There was a pause. Of course we called Mila first. She's already here at the hospital. Of course she was. Even in crisis, even potentially dying, I was still the second call. Some things never change. I arrived at the hospital 45 minutes later, having fought through morning traffic with a mix of dread and resignation. The sterile smell of disinfectant hit me as soon as I walked through the automatic doors, bringing back memories of the time I'd broken my arm at 12. Mila had pushed me off the swing set during one of her tantrums, but somehow the story became that I'd been careless. She got ice cream for being so brave watching her sister get hurt. Room 302 was at the end of a long corridor. Through the small window, I could see them, my parents, looking smaller and more fragile than I'd ever seen them. My mother's face was swollen, covered in bruises. My father had tubes running everywhere, machines beeping steadily beside his bed. And there, sitting between them like a guardian angel, was Mila. She looked up when I entered, and for a moment, I saw myself reflected in her face. Same dark hair, same green eyes, same sharp cheekbones. But where my face had worry lines from years of striving and stress, hers was smooth, pampered. Her designer dress probably cost more than my monthly rent. Oh, thank God you're finally here, Mila said, rising to embrace me. I stepped back, keeping the distance professional. How are they? I asked, addressing the question to the nurse who was checking my mother's IV. Stable for now, the nurse replied. But they both need surgery within the next 48 hours. The doctor will be in soon to explain everything. After the nurse left, an uncomfortable silence settled over the room. My mother's eyes fluttered open, focusing on me with difficulty. Sweetheart, she whispered, and for a moment my heart jumped until I realized she was looking past me at Mila. Don't worry, everything will be okay. Actually, Mom, Mila said, her voice taking on that sickeningly sweet tone she used when she wanted something. We need to talk about the medical bills. My father stirred, grimacing in pain. The insurance. It won't cover everything. The driver who hit us. No insurance. He was drunk. How much? I asked, already knowing this was why they'd really called me. $200,000. Mila said quickly. For both surgeries, the rehabilitation, the medications. The hospital needs a guarantee of payment before they'll schedule the operations. I looked at my parents, really looked at them. Even broken and bruised, they were looking at Mila with concern, not at me. I was just the ATM they remembered when the bills came due. And what's your plan, Mila? I asked. How much are you contributing? She laughed, actually laughed. I don't have that kind of money. Robert and I are still paying off the wedding, and we just bought the house. Every penny is accounted for. The wedding. There it was, the $50,000 wedding that had been partially funded by my stolen inheritance. About that wedding, I said, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. How much did it cost again? 50,000? 60? Mila's eyes narrowed. I don't see what that has to do with anything. It has everything to do with it. I turned to my parents. Did you ever tell Mila where part of that money came from? My mother's face, already pale, went white. My father suddenly found the ceiling very interesting. What's she talking about? Mila demanded. Grandma's wedding fund, I said simply. The one she set up for both of us. $50,000 each, to be used for our weddings or, if we chose, for a house down payment. Mine mysteriously disappeared right before your engagement party. That's ridiculous, Mila scoffed. Mom, Dad, tell her she's being paranoid. But they couldn't. The silence stretched on, broken only by the beeping of machines. You knew? Mila turned to our parents, but there was no surprise in her voice, only a mild irritation. You gave her my wedding money? It wasn't hers, I said, my voice rising. It was mine. Half was yours, which you got. The other half was mine, which you also got. You weren't even dating anyone, my mother finally spoke, her voice weak but still managing to sound defensive. Mila needed it. She was getting married. You were just working all the time. I was building a career. I was saving for my future. I was being responsible. The words came out in a rush. And when I found out what you'd done when the bank finally told me why I couldn't access my account, what did you say? That Mila deserved a special day. That I'd understand when it was my turn. And now it's your turn to help the family, my father said, trying to sit up straighter. You make good money, senior associate at that law firm. No husband, no kids, no real expenses. The family needs you now. No real expenses. As if my student loans hadn't taken me 8 years to pay off because they'd never helped. Too busy funding Mila's failed business ventures. As if I hadn't worked 60-hour weeks to get where I was. As if my life, my achievements, my struggles were all just footnotes in the grand story of Mila's existence. No, I said quietly. The word hung in the air like a challenge. What do you mean, no? Mila's voice pitched higher, her perfect composure cracking. They're our parents. They could die. The hospital won't let them die, I replied calmly. They'll provide the necessary emergency care. They'll work out payment plans. There are social services, medical aid programs, options that don't involve me paying for everything while you keep your designer handbags and McMansion. How dare you? Mila stood up, her face flushing red. This isn't about me. This is about saving our parents' lives. Really? Then sell your car. That Tesla in the parking lot must be worth at least $60,000. Sell some of your jewelry. That engagement ring alone could cover a quarter of the bills. Those are necessities. I need my car for work, and I can't just sell my engagement ring. What would people think? What people think, I repeated slowly. That's always been what matters most, hasn't it? What people think when Mila gets married. What people think when Mila buys a house. What people think when Mila plays the devoted daughter at the hospital while contributing nothing. My mother tried to speak but started coughing. Mila rushed to her side with water, shooting me a look that could kill. You're upsetting them. The truth tends to be upsetting, I said. Here's more truth. I've been keeping records. Every birthday you forgot about me while Mila got parties. Every Christmas where Mila's presents filled the room while I got generic gift cards. Every time you missed my achievements because Mila had anything happening. I have it all documented. You kept records? My father's voice was weak but incredulous. Of family gatherings? Of neglect, I corrected. Of favoritism so blatant that my therapist didn't believe me until I showed her the photos. 30 years of being invisible in my own family. And now, suddenly, I'm visible because you need money. We're not asking for a handout, my mother managed to say. We'll pay you back. I actually laughed at that. Like you paid back the wedding fund? Like you paid back the loans for Mila's boutique that failed in 6 months? Or her cupcake business? Or her jewelry line? Each failed venture was another nail in the coffin of their argument. Mila's face grew redder with each one mentioned. Those were investments in my future, Mila protested. Investments that I was never worthy of, I shot back. When I wanted to go to law school, you told me to be realistic. When Mila wanted to sell homemade candles online, you gave her $10,000. The doctor chose that moment to enter, a middle-aged man with kind eyes who looked tired from a long shift. He explained the procedures needed my mother's spinal surgery, my father's internal repairs, the risks if they didn't have the operation soon. The payment options available. We can work with financial services, he said gently. There are payment plans, assistance programs. No one needs to pay everything up front, but the best surgeons, the private rooms, the premium care that needs immediate payment, Mila interjected. My parents deserve the best. Your parents deserve what they can afford, I said. Just like I deserved what I could afford when I was putting myself through school. The doctor, sensing the family tension, excused himself quickly. As soon as he left, Mila turned on me full force. You're really going to let them suffer because of some childhood grudge? Childhood grudge? I stood up, my control finally snapping. When I graduated summa cum laude from law school, you know what Mom said? That's nice, dear. Did you see Mila's new haircut? When I made senior associate youngest in the firm's history, Dad asked if I could help pay for your wedding. Not congratulations, not we're proud of you. Just can you help, Mila? We are proud of you, my mother said weakly. Name one of my achievements, I challenged. Without looking at your phone, without asking Mila. Name my undergraduate degree. Name the law firm I work for. Name one case I've won. Silence. Now name Mila's husband, her wedding colors, her honeymoon destination. Robert, blush and gold, Maldives, my father recited without hesitation. I rest my case. I picked up my purse. I'm leaving. If you need help navigating the financial assistance programs, I can recommend some excellent social workers. But my bank account is closed to this family, just like your hearts were closed to me. As I reached the door, Mila called out, "What if they die? Could you live with yourself?" I turned back one last time. I've been living with myself just fine for the past 3 years since I cut contact. This emergency doesn't change the past. It doesn't erase the theft. And it doesn't suddenly make me matter to any of you beyond my financial value. 3 years? My mother looked confused. But we saw you last Christmas. No, you saw Mila last Christmas. I haven't been to a family gathering in 3 years. The fact that you didn't notice proves my point perfectly. I left the hospital with my hands shaking but my resolve firm. The next 3 days were a barrage of phone calls, texts, and emails. Not just from my parents and Mila, but from aunts, uncles, cousins, family members who hadn't spoken to me in years, suddenly remembering I existed. How could you abandon your parents in their time of need? Aunt Catherine's voicemail was typical of them all. Family helps family. What kind of daughter are you? The kind who's tired of being a resource instead of a relative, I thought, but didn't say. On day 4, Mila showed up at my apartment. I saw her through the security camera, standing at my door in what looked like a deliberately disheveled state, hair messy, makeup smeared, wearing sweatpants I'd never seen her in before. The performance of the distraught daughter. I didn't answer the door. She knocked for 10 minutes, then started talking loudly, knowing I could hear her. "I know you're in there. The neighbors said you haven't left. Please, we need to talk. Mom's getting worse. Dad's in pain. The payment deadline is tomorrow." I turned up my music. Eventually, she left, but not before sliding an envelope under my door. Inside was a letter in my mother's shaky handwriting. "My dearest daughter, I know we've made mistakes, I know we haven't been fair, but we're facing death now, and I need you to know that we do love you. We've always loved you. Maybe we didn't show it the right way, but you were always our strong one. Mila needed more help. You were so capable, so independent. We thought you didn't need us. Please don't let our failures as parents be our last memory together. Please help us. We'll make it right, I promise. Love, Mom." I read it twice, then photographed it for my records. The manipulation was subtle but clear. I was strong and independent when it meant neglecting me, but now that they needed money, suddenly I was the dearest daughter. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in years. I called my grandmother's sister, Great Aunt Helen, the only family member who'd ever seen the dynamic for what it was. "They're really laying it on thick, aren't they?" Helen's voice was dry but warm. "Let me guess, suddenly, you're the beloved daughter? You heard? Honey, the whole family's heard. Mila's been calling everyone, painting you as some kind of monster. But I remember your graduation. I was the only family member there besides you. You remember that?" "I remember everything, dear. I remember you crying at your 13th birthday because they forgot it, entirely too busy planning Mila's party the week after. I remember you working 3 jobs in college while Mila got a free ride. I remember a lot of things the family conveniently forgets." Helen's call gave me strength, but the family assault continued. My phone buzzed constantly with messages ranging from pleading to threatening. My cousin Marcus sent a particularly nasty text about family loyalty. My Uncle James left a voicemail suggesting I'd regret this when they were gone. On day 6, I got a call from the hospital's financial services. They were professional, simply confirming that I wouldn't be providing financial assistance and explaining that my parents were working with them on alternative arrangements. The relief in knowing they were getting care, just not premium care, eased some of my guilt. That evening, Mila appeared on my security camera again. This time, she wasn't alone. Robert was with her, and they weren't performing distress. They were angry. "Open this door right now," Mila banged hard. "I know you're watching on that stupid camera, we need to talk." I opened the door but didn't invite them in. "Talk. The hospital has them in shared rooms," Mila said, as if this was the greatest tragedy imaginable. "Shared rooms? With strangers? And the surgeon doing Mom's operation is some nobody resident. A qualified doctor at a reputable hospital," I corrected. Robert stepped forward. "Look, what's it going to take? What do you want? An apology? Fine. Mila's parents are sorry. Now write the check." "Mila's parents," I repeated. Interesting phrasing. And no, I don't want an apology. I wanted parents who saw me as more than Mila's shadow. That ship sailed decades ago. "You're being ridiculous," Robert said. "It's just money. You make, what, 200 grand a year? This is 1 year's salary for you." "Actually, I make 300,000, I said, enjoying the shock on their faces. "Senior associates at top firms do quite well. Not that any of you ever asked about my career." Mila's face cycled through several emotions: surprise, envy, calculation. "Then you can definitely afford—" "I can afford a lot of things. I choose not to afford this. There's a difference." "They could have complications," Mila said desperately. "The free surgery, the resident doctors, what if something goes wrong?" "Then that's the consequence of their choices," I said. They chose to give you my money. They chose to favor you for 32 years. They chose to treat me as lesser. Choices have consequences. And your choice will have consequences too, Robert threatened. The family will never forgive you. The family that didn't notice I'd been gone for 3 years? I laughed. Oh no, how will I survive? After they left, I did something I should have done years ago. I compiled everything, every photo, every card, every documented instance of favoritism into a single file. Then I wrote a letter. Not to my parents or Mila, but to the entire extended family. I sent it to everyone who'd contacted me. It included photos from family Christmases showing the stark difference in gift quantities, screenshots of birthday posts, elaborate essays for Mila, nothing for me, bank records showing the wedding fund withdrawal, a timeline of every major life event they'd missed of mine while attending Mila's trivial ones. The letter my mother had recently written, annotated with the manipulative phrases highlighted. The subject line was simple. Why? I said no. The full story. The responses were immediate and varied. Some family members were shocked, having never realized the extent of the favoritism. Others doubled down, saying I was petty for keeping records. But Aunt Helen's reply was the one that mattered. Good for you, sweetheart. It's about time someone stood up to this nonsense. 2 days later, I got an unexpected call from the hospital. It was the social worker assigned to my parents' case. I'm calling to inform you that your parents' surgeries have been scheduled for tomorrow. Your sister has agreed to cover the additional costs for the premium care package. I was stunned. Mila's paying? Well, partially. She's apparently selling some assets and has negotiated a payment plan for the rest. I just wanted to let you know in case you wanted to be here. After I hung up, I sat in my apartment trying to process this. Mila, who'd never sacrificed anything in her life, was actually selling her precious possessions. It didn't make sense. Then my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was a screenshot from Mila's Instagram, sent by one of my cousins. She'd posted a photo of herself at the hospital with the caption, "Sometimes being the responsible daughter means making hard choices. Selling my treasures to save my parents because family means everything. Number blessed, number family first, number daughter duties." There it was. She'd found a way to turn even this into a performance. A way to paint herself as the hero, while implicitly painting me as the villain. But the comments were interesting. Mixed in with the praise were questions. Where's your sister? Why are you doing this alone? Didn't you use her wedding money? The truth was seeping out. The surgeries went well. I knew because Aunt Helen kept me informed, not because anyone else bothered to tell me. Both parents came through successfully, beginning their long recovery journey. Mila continued her social media campaign, posting daily updates about her sacrifices, her devotion, her exhaustion from being the only daughter who cared. But something interesting happened. The family narrative began to shift. Those documents I'd shared had planted seeds of doubt. Cousins who'd blindly supported Mila started asking questions. Aunts who'd called me heartless began reconsidering. The story of the stolen wedding fund spread like wildfire. A week after the surgeries, I received an unexpected visitor at my office. It was Robert, alone this time, looking tired and somewhat defeated. "Can we talk?" he asked. "Really talk? Not fight?" I agreed to a coffee in the building's cafe, curious about what he had to say. "I didn't know," he started, "about the wedding fund. Mila told me her grandmother had left it all to her, that you'd gotten other things. And you believed her? Why wouldn't I? She's my wife." He paused, stirring his coffee. "But I've been thinking. About a lot of things. Like how she never mentions you unless she needs something. How your parents only called you after calling her first, even though you're the one with money. How there are no photos of you in their house after age 15. 16, I corrected. That's when I stopped trying to matter. The thing is," Robert continued, "we can't sustain this. The payment plan for the hospital, our mortgage, our lifestyle, Mila refuses to actually sell anything significant. Those Instagram posts? She sold some old clothes and one piece of jewelry she didn't like anyway. The real money is coming from loans she's taking out against my credit. Why are you telling me this? Because I think you deserve to know. And because I'm starting to understand why you said no." He stood to leave, then turned back. "For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. Don't let them guilt you into changing your mind." 3 days later, I made a decision that had been building for months. My firm had offered me a position in their London office, a promotion to partner, international experience, a fresh start. I'd been hesitating, held back by some invisible thread to this place, these people who'd never really seen me. I accepted the position. The moving process was quiet and efficient, much like how I'd lived my life. I didn't announce it to the family, didn't make any grand declarations. I simply packed up my apartment, sold what I couldn't take, and prepared for my new life across the ocean. 2 weeks before my departure, I received one final plea from my mother. She was recovering well, according to her email, and wanted to see me, just once, to make things right. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her. Not at the hospital, not at their home, but at a neutral cafe downtown. She looked older, frailer, the accident having aged her in ways beyond the physical injuries. For a moment, I felt the pull of sympathy, but then she opened her mouth. Mila's marriage is struggling because of the financial strain, she said, as if this was my fault. If you could just help a little. Stop, I said quietly. Just stop. Even now, even after everything. Your first concern is Mila. Not how are you, not I've missed you, not we were wrong. Just Mila needs help. But she does need. Mom, I'm moving to London. I've been promoted to partner. It's a huge opportunity, the culmination of everything I've worked for. She blinked, processing this. London? But what about us? What about family? What family? I asked gently. The one that forgot my birthdays? The one that stole my inheritance? The one that only remembers I exist when bills are due? We can change, she said desperately. We can do better. Can you? Because you've been recovering for 3 weeks, and this is the first time you've reached out to me directly, and it's still about Mila. She didn't have an answer for that. I stood to leave, then made one final decision. From my bag, I pulled out a check. Not for $200,000, not for $50,000, but for $10,000. This isn't for you or Dad, I said, placing it on the table. This is for Grandma. She would have wanted me to help, even after what you did with her gift to me. But this is it. No more. Don't contact me again. I left her crying at that table. It was the first time I'd ever seen her cry for me, for what we'd lost, for what we'd never had. The day I flew to London, Mila sent me a text. You'll regret this. I replied for the first and last time. The only thing I regret is waiting 32 years to choose myself. As the plane lifted off, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, lightness. The weight of being unseen, unvalued, unloved by those who should have loved me most fell away with each mile of distance. 6 months later, Aunt Helen visited me in London. She brought news my parents were fully recovered. Mila and Robert had divorced. The family had fractured into camps of who supported whom. But she also brought something else, pride. You did what I never could, she said over tea in my new flat. You broke the cycle. You chose yourself. I looked around my new life, my corner office with a view of the Thames, my flat decorated exactly how I wanted, my colleagues who respected me for my achievements, not my bank account. I'd built something here, something that was entirely mine. I didn't break the cycle, I told Helen. I just stepped out of it. They can keep spinning without me. And they did. Back in the States, my family continued their drama, their favoritism, their dysfunction. Mila found new people to manipulate. My parents found new ways to enable her. But none of it touched me anymore. I'd finally learned the lesson it took 32 years to understand. Sometimes the best way to love yourself is to stop trying to earn love from people incapable of giving it. Sometimes freedom isn't about breaking chains, it's about walking away and never looking back. In London, I wasn't nobody's daughter or Mila's sister or the family ATM. I was just me, and for the first time in my life, that was more than enough.